Hello there. So today I want to go through this video. Actually, I want to go through this video the next 4 days. It's 4 lies theists tell about atheists by this guy, this YouTuber, Genetically Modified Skeptic. And I think this is important. If you're a religious person, if you're a theist, you believe God commanded not to lie. So it's a sin to lie. So from that worldview, it's worthwhile to understand if atheists are out there accusing theists of lying about them. Well, it's important theists understand what they are so they cannot go against this commandment from God to not lie. However, before getting into it, I just want to add, from his worldview, I'm not sure why objectively it matters. I understand personally you don't like it, but your feelings were hurt from a lie from other people, but there's no command for you to not lie as far as you're concerned. There's no God. So it doesn't really matter. You just don't like it. So I'm essentially addressing a video of this guy who just doesn't like something, and it's supposed to objectively matter because I don't know. But at the end of the day, religious people, for them, it should matter. So let's go through this and actually see if there's actual lies here, what they are. And without further ado, here's the video.
Within certain theist circles, dialogue on atheists is dominated by ideas which misrepresent atheists entirely. A single honest conversation with an atheist could put these ideas to rest for most people, but many theists who have never been able, or perhaps willing to have such a conversation, go about propagating these ideas. To be clear, I'm not talking about all theists here. In fact, this video will discuss statements which I have almost exclusively heard from Abrahamics, primarily Christians and Muslims. Living in the US probably has a lot to do with that, but it may also be that not all faiths are so focused on everyone believing in a particular God. In the interest of improving the dialogue between theists and atheists, I'd like to kindly address some common misconceptions about atheists which stand in the way of productive discourse. I certainly don't represent all atheists, so if you're a theist watching this, realize that if you'd like to understand where a specific atheist you know stands on the issues to come, it's best if you just politely ask that person about them. As I hope everyone will come to see by the end, none of these misconceptions have to exist if we commit ourselves to kindly asking people what they do or don't believe, and more importantly, listening before we speak. Oh, and a final note before we begin, I've already made a video correcting 5 other common misrepresentations of atheists, so if you'd like to check that out, it's linked in the description. Atheists believe everything came from nothing. First off, atheism does not dictate one's cosmology. There's no rule atheism enforces which says that a person has to believe anything about the universe's origins. I will say, though, that many atheists, or at least many of the Western atheists with which I'm familiar, are proponents of Big Bang cosmology. This may not mean what you think it means, however. The Big Bang is not some version of creation ex nihilo, or creation from nothing. The event we might call the Big Bang is not posited as an absolute beginning to our universe in the first place, but simply the furthest we can trace the expansion of our universe backward until our understanding of physics breaks down. A purely scientific understanding of the Big Bang is not accurately represented as something from nothing, but rather as our mathematical models work well up until a certain point. Beyond that, well, we don't know. That said, many of the atheists I know in accepting the Big Bang do not claim to know exactly how our universe came to be. Personally, if asked where everything came from or how everything came to be, I would just say, I don't know, because that's the only honest answer I can give. I won't stand firmly by one hypothesis over another when the evidence is just not clear. Most atheists I've ever known agree with me on that, so no. Atheists don't believe everything came from nothing. Many of us just refuse to pretend we know how our universe came to be exactly, because in reality, no one does. I think this misrepresentation of atheists says much more about the theists who believe it than the atheists it's meant to describe. It's only those theists, after all, who would describe the positions one could have on the issue as either, my God did it, or everything came from nothing. Thankfully, plenty of theists don't hold to this position. How do I know that? Well, I've actually spent time talking to, and more importantly, listening to a wide variety of theists explain their positions. If certain theists listen to atheists in the same way, they'd see that atheists don't, in fact, believe everything came from nothing.
Yeah, so that is 100% a lie that theists do spread about atheists, that the world came from nothing. Okay, I agree with this. You might think that I agree with this 100%, therefore the video's over. Okay, but I'm actually going to go through a little bit about myself here, because I want to just explain why I'm qualified to actually go through this. I think this is necessary because a lot of theists out there have claimed they were atheists, and then they make their arguments, and they're lacking understanding of atheists, and they're talking past each other, not talking to each other. And I think it's worthwhile to understand, if we're discussing this properly here, that I was an atheist, and I'm not just saying that. I know that you might have heard a lot of people saying, especially if you know of Ray Comfort, which you probably do. A lot of videos that makes this claim. He did a whole documentary and a whole thing, made a movie or something showing that he changed the mind of a theist. Here's how you do it. I mean, an atheist to become a theist, and here's how you do it, and all that stuff. And a real atheist will watch that and know none of these people were atheists. All of them were agnostics that for some reason were convinced they were atheists, or they were paid off to just claim they were atheists and make the arguments for the movie or whatever it is. I don't know. It doesn't matter either way. The point is, if you're a real atheist, you'll watch that, as I was, and know these people were actually agnostics. You hear their arguments, you hear what they're saying. They're lost about things in life. They don't know, and but they're also claiming that they're atheists, meaning they don't believe there's a God. Here's the thing: if you're agnostic, if you believe anything spiritual or supernatural exists, which is suggested that these people have, that they do in the video while claiming they're an atheist, you're really an agnostic. That's the reality of that. No matter what, I know an atheist would say, no, the reality is you just don't believe in a God. And just because you think you don't believe in God doesn't mean you really don't believe in a God, because you can think you don't believe in a God and actually believe in supernatural, spiritual things and all that stuff. And really, you're an agnostic because you're already believing in things out of the realms of nature, in the realms of supernatural, which God is in that realm. And there's no way you can say, I believe in this thing that exists that's supernatural, but I don't believe in that thing. You can't really, you could just not know. Intellectual honesty over here. That's the conclusion of that. So I know from being an atheist that's where it was, and I still can tell you from being an atheist there is no evidence for God. I don't believe there is evidence for God, and it's based on faith and belief. You can't prove it. This is not possible to prove. I've been convinced. I believe it, but I know from being an atheist you can't prove it. And I've heard all the arguments out there to try proving it, and I would gladly go through all of them and say no, you can't prove it. But here's why it makes sense to believe in it, and make of it what you will. That's what I would say. I'm not going to go through my arguments right now why I believe there's a God, but that's what I'll say about that. Also, the atheist experience. I will tell you from being an atheist, every debate I've ever heard, the atheist won the debate. Okay, so now this makes me feel and believe that I'm qualified to thoroughly go through this stuff and actually be able to counter any atheist on the same field, because most theists or anyone trying to counter them usually are they're just talking past each other. I think from my end, from my understanding, what I've been through with all this stuff, I'm not talking past. I'm talking with, from knowing all the points of views and actually understanding the doctrine. That I would say most theists rather, lose the debates because they don't understand the doctrine from the atheists. So that being said, the worldview of the atheist is the thing, that we're getting at over here. That the worldview is basically, we all just exist, and our feelings are the most important thing. Our empathy, how we feel towards one another, is of the most important thing. What we feel, what we make our purpose to be, is of the most important thing. But all this stuff is basically just feeding what you feel, ultimately concluding your feelings is the most important thing. So to a theist, you're going to make your arguments. Lying matters. So you're going to have to convince the theist and have a good objective reason why that matters. Why their lies to you matter. For me, going around to all of them, explain to them, don't lie. God said not to lie. This matters from God. You got to serve God. Do what God wants you to do. All that. That makes 100% sense. That's intellectually honest. That works. But from your point of view, you're basically out here making a video saying, stop hurting my feelings. Feelings are the most important thing. And but with that conclusion, we got to conclude that, we got to maybe stop parents from disciplining their kids, making their kids cry, slapping their kids, doing things, because the conclusion is that hurting feelings are the most important thing. Now, you might argue that, there's the good outweighs the bad, and I can say, there's lies that the good from the lies outweigh the bad. I can tell you there's stealing where the good outweighs the bad. If I go to a grocery right now, I don't have money, but let's say I steal a loaf of bread for a homeless guy, I can justify that. I can say, if I get caught, we're still justified. I tried. I wanted to feed the homeless guy. The homeless guy, he has no one helping him. He can't go in there because he smells, and I'm much more likely to be able to steal the thing for him even though maybe I shouldn't, but you know something, I think it's maybe justified, and I can justify it. You know, there's a lot of stuff out there you can justify that makes sense, but ultimately, from an atheist worldview, none of this makes any sense to actually care about, and there's nothing that's intellectually honest that makes sense to be able to say theists should care about these things from atheists because why? See, I believe as a theist that I am now that everything has a purpose, and when you're discussing things and debating things, it's worthwhile to debate the purpose and the value and the worth of the thing. And if the thing we're talking about we can't agree to the value and the worth of it, we're not going to really get anywhere. Now, we're going to get somewhere with lying because we agree that lying is bad. But from your worldview, I don't know why anyone should take you seriously or care about this because from your worldview, there is no purpose, there's no value, there's no worth to caring about lying because you live and you die, and let's say you had children, they live and they die, and it was all for nothing. What happened before your life didn't matter. What happened after your life didn't matter, and what happens during your life ultimately doesn't matter. If you steal and you murder and you do all the stuff you want to do, and you just act on your feelings however you want, you're gonna die one day. And let's say you have the worst life. Let's say you had the best life. There was nothing before, as far as you're concerned. There was nothing after. There's people, but before the people, you don't know what there was. Before anything, you don't know what there was. That's your claim. And then after, you don't know what's going to be. As far as you're concerned, there may as well be nothing. So this claim that the world actually came from nothing isn't even that crazy of a stretch for a theist to say about atheists, because you don't even know what our existence purpose is or anything like that. But you're out here saying we should care about these things. We should care about this lie from you. They should care about the lie from them, not from you. You'd have to make the claim why it's of worth and of value to make this to care about this lie from you. And yeah, that's all I got for that. All the best. Thanks for watching.